Hi, it's Joe. So we got chapter 2 today of I Learned It by Watching You. Let's go on ahead. I couldn't find anything that sharp or fancy in the selection of clothing that I had with me. Most of my clothes were ones that were made for the spring and summer. The closest thing to that was a denim crescent shirt, a ruffled purple blouse, a pair of black tights, and a pair of blue Mary Jane shoes with ribbons on the outward sides of each shoe. Wow, gotta love those specific clothing details, said no one ever. I brushed my hair in the mirror that was on the inside of the bathroom, making sure that I had no extra hair getting my face. As I say that, hair gets my face. Whoopty-fucking-do. I finally used a hair clip to pull some of the hair back from my left side of my head. I took one last evaluation of myself, making sure that I looked presentable, not only for the Nimitz family, but for my new second grade class as well. Who said you had to be presentable for your class? Nobody said you had to for that. Gianna, Irma called downstairs from the living room. It's almost time to leave for school. I quickly ran into my room, where it was painted rose pink with a vanity, a closet, and a bed that was parallel to the mirror, which was vertical to my door. Hey dog, I heard you like details. I grabbed my school bag that was laying on my bed, filled it with my new school supplies, and rushed downstairs. When I got to the rest of the family, I stood up straight, while also straightening out my clothing. Then I waited for the verdict. Irma overlooked my outfit, straightening out some parts that I missed. Irma made a tisk sound about 2 or 3 times and shook her head lightly. Well, it's just going to have to do for now, I guess. Irma gave me my school lunch, which was placed inside a pink and yellow lunchbox with the Princess Belle on it. Why can't I talk today? I don't know. With a black marker, it was labeled Property of Gianna Nimitz on the back. God, what a bitch. Irma led me and Gunter to the rickety old car, while Aldrich took a dark green truck, in which he drove off to work in. So I'm assuming that the truck must have been a pickup, because otherwise, why else couldn't they have just picked up Gianna in the truck? I know it's a nitpick, but why are you still having that old car if it's still making all those rickety noises? You should probably get that checked out, you know? Gunter sat in front with Irma while I had to sit in the back. On our trek to school, I looked out the window to see other children getting on school buses leading to different directions. Some were even in school uniforms, heading to private school. When I wasn't looking out the window, I ended up dozing off here and there because of how early I had to wake up in the morning. Whenever I would doze off, there was usually some small cat naps at best. I tried to prevent myself from falling asleep, and Irma did a good job of keeping me awake by smacking me in the leg while she was talking to me. Okay, if she's driving the car and you're in the back seat, how is she able to smack your leg, like, bam? Yeah, 'cause you're little, and how is she able to reach over there, smack you hard enough to wake you up? That makes no sense. Where was I? Gunter was already at the middle school by the time she smacked me. From what information I got from her, the elementary school I'll be going to taught kindergarten through 4th grade, and I was just another 5 minutes away. Gunter was dropped off at Bayside Middle School, which taught 5th through 8th grade, where I would be in 3 years. So she's basically in 2nd grade at this point. 2nd graders usually are in bed by like 8, yet she's given a curfew of 10:30. What? Also, I'm pretty sure the average 2nd grader isn't like 6 years old, or however the fuck old she is here. Irma pulled up to a parking lot of a large light brown building. Up near the entrance, I could see a brick sign with text that had the words Stormonth Elementary plastered on it. Irma parked the car right in front of where the entrance was, and I got out of the car with my bag and lunch as soon as she left me. I turned around to see if Irma had anything to say before leaving, like where my class was or how to find my way around the place. All she said to me was, "Good luck, you're going to need it," before starting up the car once more and driving away. I imagined that she would be more motherly in this type of situation, but then again, she didn't seem to be that motherly towards me to begin with. Wow. I'm sorry, I still can't get over how much of a cunt Irma is. Why did I make her such a bitch? 2012 me, explain this. I know we're supposed to sympathize with the main character, but you didn't have to make her such a biatch. As I looked up at the school, I heard myself gulp. Well, it was now or never. Make an impression or not at all. I clutched the straps in my backpack, took a deep breath, and slowly made my way inside the building. When I entered the building, I found myself being caught in an invisible cloak of peace and serenity. I watched all the smiling faces of the children that passed by me, and the parents telling their children how amazing they were. If Mama were here, she'd say I was more than amazing, that I was perfect. The other adults had cheerful vibes to them, making them seem less frightening. There were also some pleasant and motivational posters plastered on the walls, such as, "Keep up the good work," and "Go for it and do your very best." I smiled at the designs of the posters, which gave me a sense of balance and harmony. I was hardly here for a day, and already the school gave me peace of mind, a place where I could get away from all the troubles of the Nimitz family. I felt bubbly inside, wanting to start new here. But then the bell rang, and soon students from every angle started piling into the building, making the entrance open and free feel restricted and crowded. Amidst the crowd, one of the teachers noticed me and pulled me over to the other side of the hall. "You're Gianna Nimitz, aren't you?" I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Well, I'm Miss Bailey, and according to my list, you're the latest addition to my class. So why don't you come with me and we can go to class together?" Her voice seemed kind and sounded southern, like Irma expected. I wanted to make a good first impression. I nodded and followed her over to the very last room in the hall to the left. When we entered the room, some warm colors popped out at me, along with some decorations that I'm guessing that the teacher and the other kids made themselves. The room was painted green, my favorite color. Green is not a creative color. Also, how convenient it is that you would run into your second-grade teacher on the very first day of school and that she would automatically know who you are. What a coincidence! Okay. The school bell rang, and after reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, the students all sat two at a table, and Mrs. Bailey stood next to me in front of the class. "Class, we have a new student joining us today. This is Gianna Nimitz, and she's from Farmington." "Hi, Gianna," the class announced to me in a chipper tone. "Gianna, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?" I scanned the eyes throughout the classroom. The students seemed like a friendly bunch, and they seemed to be interested in my presence. I bet they wouldn't mind if they labeled me Gia. I smiled and said, "You can all just call me Gia if you like." Do teachers actually still do that? Is that still a thing where you'd be like, "Oh, feel free to tell us a bit about yourself," where they stand in front of the class and they give a little spiel or whatever? Yeah, it's a trope in movies, I know, but is it still an actual thing? Because I remember, back in, 3rd grade, there's this one girl who was new at the time. She introduced herself to the class. So anyone, feel free to answer that question for me in the comment section, because I have no idea what the fuck, if that's still even a thing nowadays. God, I feel so old. Alright, now that we have that little bit of information out of the way, we can now start today's lessons. Today's is supposed to have a little apostrophe, that little apostrophe thing. It's a spelling error, okay? You'll know if you're reading with me. "Gia, you can take a seat over there next to Luke," Miss Bailey said as she went over to the desk. "Yeah, remember when I said in the last part that things were only going to get worse from here? Feel free to back out now, because it's only going to get worse. I'm not going to warn you. You'll know when the madness truly begins. As if it wasn't already maddening enough. Okay, the first chapter was alright, but now we're getting into the real shit. The real shitty shit. Shit. I went over to the boy that was alone in his spot, and sat on the right side of him. Lou had slightly long brown hair and innocent blue eyes, and wore a navy blue polo shirt with beige shorts and white shoes. When I looked over at his paper that were given on our first worksheet for the day, at first I thought he spelled his own name wrong. It was spelled L-I-U instead of L-O-U. I didn't want to make a big deal about the issue, so I just continued with following the lesson. I also noticed he seemed to be quite shy, and he would speak a little quietly when called to answer a question. Recess came by at around 3 hours or so, and we were let out to play with the other second graders and third graders in the school outside. There was plenty of space to roam around within the area, so I decided to see what there was to play with or explore. Of course, there were different kids around with their own groups, but I didn't have anyone to hang around with. I hugged my homemade rag doll to Sorrow and nuzzled her against my chest. I then noticed Lou, who was tagging along another boy like a lost puppy. This boy had brown hair that was darker than Lou's and wasn't that long. He appeared to be also a bit older than him, possibly either a few months or a year. Maybe Lou has some trouble making friends and only sticks to him, I thought. It only made a bit of sense, seeing now he was so timid in class today. I then decided to walk up towards the two boys. Maybe we could become good friends. I smiled optimistically as I walked in her direction, but then a new voice came by me. Yeah, I incorporated Jeff and Lou in this. Feel free to hate me all you want, 'cause I don't blame you. I do not blame you for hating this. Yeah, and it's only going to get a lot more awkward from here, in terms of both dialogue and storytelling. Yeah. Aren't you glad I warned you? But don't say I didn't. Hey, you with the doll, a girl called out in my direction, walking towards me. Seeing as though I was the only girl available with the doll in her possession, I put it together that she was talking to me. I turned around, seeing one of the girls from my class. Dominique, I think it was. Yeah, I answered. Dominique stood in front of me defiantly, with her hands on her hips. You're the new kid, right? The one who's adopted? Okay, how the fuck does she know that she's adopted? Nobody asked her if she was adopted. The only thing she ever told them was that to call her Gia and that she was from Farmington. So how does this little kid know that one of the other new kids is adopted? That makes no freaking sense. And it only turns out to serve the plot later. The way she said that word, adopted, made it sound utterly disgusting, as if being adopted was a bad thing. And how does she know I was adopted? Yeah, that is a good question. How does she know you're adopted? I nodded, feeling uncomfortable around this girl. Yeah. Dominique snorted. Guess your mommy didn't want you, huh? I wouldn't blame her. Look at your weird clothes. And that thing. Dominique pointed to Tesoro. But my mama did want me. She never wanted anything bad to happen to me. I looked down at my attire, and these were the only fancy clothes I had on me at the moment. And what's wrong with my doll? She's very special, you know. My mama made it for me. Dominique snorted again, sounding like a pig. Your doll is ugly, your clothes are ugly, and your mommy didn't want you. Dominique turned her last statement into a chant, and I saw a few other girls starting to join in. Okay, this is shit a Saturday morning cartoon villain would say, not an actual bully. I'm sorry, I cannot take this bit seriously. I can't take Dominique seriously as a character either. She's just there as a plot device. As you can see here, practically everything in this fanfic / creepypasta is a plot device in some way or another, which will become more prevalent as it goes on. Yeah, feel free to shoot me in that now. No, it's not true. It's not true. She said we would be together again one day, and Tesoro is not ugly, and neither are my clothes. I began to feel my heart sink, but I tried to stand my ground. But instead their chant grew louder and louder. But I put my hands to my ears, my hands on my knees, wanted them to stop. Tesoro was in my right hand as I covered my ears and shook my head. Hey, leave her alone! I heard a voice along with some footsteps. I looked up and saw the little boy that Lou was hanging out with had stepped in between me and the relentless group of girls taunting me. Dominique's smiles seemed to slip a bit. Oh, the freak is protecting the adoptee. Why don't you just go skin a cat or something, Jeff? Jeff. So that's his name, I thought. Yeah. I actually legit wrote that. Okay, you're about to see some. And as you can see here, this group of dialogue, this bit of dialogue that I'm going to read to you now, has to be one of the most awkward things I've ever written. Leave him alone, I said, as I got up off the ground with Tesoro in my possession as I stood beside Jeff. I figured I might as well return the favor, seeing as though we both had a common enemy. Dominique's sneer only grew brighter. What are you going to do about it, little Miss Adoptee? Jeff grew visibly frustrated upon hearing this step forward again. You better back off or bring Crazy 8 in for pet day again. Remember last time when you crawled into your lunchbox? Crazy 8, I thought. Sounds like a game for toddlers. I looked over and saw two girls with scared faces. Jeff smirked at their terrified expressions. You better not, Dominic said, afraid. Oh, I will, and he'll crawl all over you, get webs all over your clothes and in your hair. He put his hands up and waved his fingers like a spider. Dominic and the other girls shrieked and ran off. Bunch of chickens. Yeah, that. I wrote that. I am never been so ashamed in my life. I am so sorry. But this has to be addressed in order to see how bad this actually is. Hey, thanks. I got up the courage today, lifting myself from the ground. I swiped off some of the gravel dirt and rustled to sore at my right arm. Jeff turned around and stuck his hand out to me. We haven't really been introduced. My name's Jeffrey, but everyone calls me Jeff. What's your name? I brought my free hand and smiled shyly. I'm Gianna, but everybody I used to know called me Gia. Jeff looked puzzled by this. Don't your, foster parents call you that? He seemed embarrassed for saying that word foster. Yeah, they call me Gianna, I said, looking down a tad. Wow, that's weird. Ha. Well, it looks like I have to call you that from now on, Gia. From here on out, you and I are friends. Jeff gave a thumbs up and smiled. Feeling safe by his presence, I smiled back, officially cementing our friendship between me, Jeff, and Lou. We've been pretty good friends throughout the next couple days, usually playing outside during recess and having lunch at the same table. We share a few common interests, particularly things that most people would find very unusual, especially with me and Jeff. We'd also ride the same bus together home from school, and both our houses were directly across the street from one another. That is until Jeff had to stay home one day because he was sick with the flu. I decided that it would be my best interest to make him a get well soon card and drop them off at the house after school. I started to get to work on it during recess, with some creative advice from Lou. We both sat on the smooth asphalt on the playground, crayons and colored pencils strewn about us. To any Jeff the Killer fans, I am so sorry. I mean, granted, Jeff's story is complete and utter shit, but I certainly did not help in this case. Any Jeff fans, I am so fucking sorry. I know I'm apologizing early, but I'm just apologizing now. I am so fucking sorry. Jeff is gonna love this, exclaimed Lou, which received a smile and a uh-huh of approval from me. Oh, what's wrong with your backup freak adoptee? Asked Dominic smugly as she went over to us and still playing the adoptee card as usual. I looked over at her. He's sick with the flu, so we're making a card for him, I stated honestly. Dominic stepped closer so her shadow fell off the card. Huh, and I thought freaks didn't get sick. Let me see it. Before either of us can move, Dominic snatched up the unfinished card. Hey, give it back, I exclaimed as I turned around. That's for Jeff. Does it look like I care? She held up the card as Lou stood, mustered up courage, and lunged for the card. Give it back, he said. Dominic held the card above Lou's head, waving it around before crumpling into a ball and throwing it over the fence. Okay, when was there a fence? It's the magic reappearing and disappearing fence from the nether regions of Neverland. Scotland. Potatoes. Oops, look at what you did. Guess Freaky isn't gonna get his precious little card now. Ha 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 ha. Dominique, the plot device, character number 562. I growled, feeling myself tense up. I clenched my fist. I felt an untamed anger grow inside me. You had absolutely no right to do that. Dominique stood triumphantly, pushing Lou to the ground. I can do whatever I want to, and you freaks have no say in it. The principal stepped up behind her and bellowed, Is that so, Dominique? I wonder what your parents would have to say to that. Dominique jumped and turned quickly. But Principal Murray, I don't want to hear it, Dominique. I saw what you did to these poor kids and you should feel terrible. To my office, he said sternly. His giant-like figure sent a shiver down my spine, and I could see that Dominique was obviously nervous. But now, he explained in a deep voice. Principal Murray S. Mahina. Yeah. Whatever anger resided in me died a little when the principal escorted Dominique to his office. I smiled a little bit, knowing that Dominique would get her much-needed punishment. But still, I had a strange feeling inside me. I couldn't quite tell what it is. It was like a strong feeling to pursue Dominique on my own. As I looked back over to Lou, who was still on the ground, helped him out by asking, "Are you okay?" Lou grabbed my hand as he was pulled back to his feet. "I'm all right. I sure hope she gets what she deserves. What are you going to do about the card, huh? It's ruined." "I'm not sure. I can just make a card back in my house and you can sign it when I bring it over to school tomorrow." "Sure, that sounds good." Suddenly he winced and looked down at his arm. There was a small cut from where Dominique pushed him. "Oh man, I hope she gets detention." Do elementary school students get detention? I highly fucking doubt that. You get detentions in middle school and high school. I highly doubt you get them in elementary school. Yeah, you get like those pink slips or whatever, but still. "Yeah, maybe even for the rest of the year," I said. I saw the cut on his arm, and nobody deserves to be treated like that. Later that day, I was working on the final finishing touches of the card inside my room. The card was decorated with some small crayon drawings and stickers of some of Jeff's favorite things. On the front card, it said, "To Jeff," in red marker. Inside the card, it said, "Hope you get well soon," written in different colored crayons for each letter. On the back, there was me and Lou would sign both our names, along a space for other things we want to write down. I was still mad at Dominique for destroying the previous card me and Lou made. She has been on my case ever since I first showed up to school. Maybe she's like that towards everyone. At least the principal found out about her latest escapades, but I wish I could have done something about it myself. I remembered the feeling that she had when she crippled the original phone over the fence. It was like an anger sore pain, the type of anger that should be released in some way. I felt that it should have been used on Dominique. After all, everyone at the school was either tortured by her on a constant basis or on her side. Since when was that ever established? You only choose to bring that up now? What the fuck? I felt like proper justice hadn't been done here, and it should have been up to me to end her reign of terror in the school. And the other girls she hangs out with are much better. Girls that we never get to meet up ever. And who never get names. Convenient. "Gianna, get your lazy ass down to the kitchen. It's time for dinner," Aldrich called from downstairs. "And make me a fucking sandwich." I sighed, wondering if he'll ever truly accept me as being part of the Nimitz family. I felt more like an unneeded accessory than a daughter. I hid the card in my backpack and quickly headed downstairs, as I didn't want to disappoint the family. As I ate dinner with the others, I let my mind wander, as the others didn't want to hear a word from me, other than me asking to be excused after my portion was completed. Not once did they ask me how school life was, or if I had made any new friends. They just talked amongst themselves, not even bothering to include me in any of their conversations. Whenever Waldo tried to include me in something, Umar and Aldrich would give me a death glare. Waldo kept silent for a few seconds, and then they would turn their back and talk. So, basically, Waldo is the only likable character in the whole Nimitz family. And the way he's handled later kind of comes out of nowhere and makes no sense. You'll definitely see it much later, like towards the end. While delved into my thoughts, I tried to figure out why I had the feeling to do such horrible things to Dominique. I wasn't sure why, but it felt, good, That's in no way an exaggeration. I actually put those dots in there. So yeah, that's the end of Chapter 2. See you tomorrow with Chapter 3. Bye!